Hi, I'm Aaron Deers, KC0WKP. I'm with Sauk County's Aries Races, and we've been playing with AREDN, or mesh networking, for about 3 to 4 years now. In this session, we're going to be looking at what AREDN is, or mesh networking, and then specifically what AREDN is, Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network, AREDN for short. What it is it's another tool in your toolbox. When you go to your served agencies and you say, "Hey, we can get you your voice network. We can talk from point A to point B, or we can set up this HF link, or we can do WINLINK email." That's great, but a lot of times they already have that covered, and we might come in as a supplementary source to help in a shelter or something like that. But now, with high-speed data where we can bring a video feed in, we could bring in complete remote file sharing to a remote area where they don't have internet access or their own network. We can drop in a SIP phone or video chat or any number of things. You've opened up a whole nother world that we can offer to our served agencies. It really, really has opened up a lot of people's eyes in the public safety community as to what we really can do and some of our capabilities, and it's amazing. So, off-the-shelf equipment that we'll be showing you to do these things. Thanks. I hope you stick around. Mesh networking. What is it? How would we use it? How is it better than the other things that we've done before? You don't have to be a crazy networking geek that's sitting there programming and coding and all that stuff to really understand it or to set it up for your served agencies, whether it's an event, special event, or just an incident. So how do we help our agencies? So right now, a lot of our stuff is voice communications, RF email, such as WINLINK, and we're doing those at special events. We might occasionally do an exercise, and every once in a while we'll be able to do some type of incident or missing persons or something like that. It just kind of varies on where you're at and what kind of relationship you have, as well as what kind of infrastructure those served agencies already have. In an urban environment, you might find that you're used less by those public safety agencies than you might be in a very rural setting where they'll take any help they can get. Other things we typically offer is HF, in the time of a disaster. So outside of a real disaster actually happening, usually we're playing with it on field day or an exercise such as SimCom or another local exercise you might have. But what else is there? Well, we got mesh networking. Mesh networking takes basically packet radio, WINLINK, those digital or data forms, even comparing it to like the D-Star digital modes or Fusion or some of those other modes that you can send data on, and it takes it to a whole nother level. We're able to do a very, very high speed data transfer. You can set up phones, you can put on cameras. Any file. You can send anything over the internet. It's really an internet-based type system. So, the sky's the limit, really. Everything these days is IP-based. So it brings a whole new world to what our served agencies really want and need, especially in the rural and the smaller towns and things like that. And it has brought Aries in my area back to the forefront of saying, hey, those guys might be able to do that for us. Those guys might be able to help us out. It's, at least once a month, I'm getting a call in our area from someone, hey, we have this issue during this incident or during this event or something like that. Would you guys be able to solve that? Usually it revolves around cameras, occasionally phones and things like that. But it starts opening their eyes up to there's people out there, Aries Races, that are willing to assist in these endeavors. And it works out really well. It's really helped our partnerships. So mesh networking. So we got the HF, VHF, UHF digital modes. We got the 300 baud, 1200, 9600. That's your typical packet, things like that. Works great for text. You're not able to send, and I guess you could do slow scan TV for, your images and stuff, but it's slow. It's not, it's good for long distance, non-line of sight stuff where you can't actually, you're sending something across the state. It's not too bad, especially for like email and things like that. We also have like the D-Star, the data, high-speed data. That's 128 kilobytes a second, which isn't bad for what it is, especially since you can do stuff with it you can't do with mesh, but vice versa. On mesh, I can give you 150 megabyte a second link. Now that's all things being perfect, but I can, again, send your cameras, send files. If you give me a zipped file of 50 megs of data that I need to send from a command post out to, a field unit, we can do it. Any IP application, it's internet style interface. So you can use a browser, you can set up Raspberry Pis and anything. I mean, just like a lot of things we do in ham radio, the sky's the limit. I mean, it's a network for tinkering. I mean, it's really cool. So AREDN, as we're going to call, started out originally as broadband hamnet. A lot of people have heard about that. Otherwise known as HSMMM mesh, multimedia mesh. And that was using the blue Linksys routers and kind of hacking some of that stuff. And it's kind of based on that same thing. But what they've done is they've taken the ideas and the development from using an in-home router and applied it to commercially available RF equipment that is actually designed to go on a tower. Much higher powered, weatherproof, things that are designed that can go 300 feet in the air on a tower and can talk for 10, 12 plus miles or more, and gave us even higher speed capability. And it's just amazing where we've come from using the blue Linksys routers. Now, those were great in the day, but what we can do with, a little $40 router now, like the MikroTik HAP, and stick this software on it, it just blows that stuff out of the water. The distances, the speeds, things like that, just the VPN capabilities, all of that. So that's where we're at. And a lot of people with the mesh, when I mention the mesh, this is what they're thinking about, because this was historically a thing. But we've gone to the next level. So what is AREDN? AREDN is a self-configuring, self-healing. Now, I say self-configuring because most of the nitty-gritty IP addresses, routing tables, things like that has all been figured out. You don't have to figure that out. Basically, when you set up a node, and we'll do that in another video here, the next video, when you set up the node, once you've installed the firmware, all you have to tell it is your call sign, which is the SSID, much like we use in Packet or APRS, the RF channel you're using. So if you want it to connect to something else, it's got to be on the same frequency, of course. And the bandwidth. So you can use 10 meg, 20 meg, 5 meg, things like that. That's just, how much frequency, bandwidth you're actually using. And you set it, and you go. Now, you can adjust power and things like that, but you don't have to. You can leave that set, whatever you need to communicate. But that's it. Now you can start, once you get your connections, it starts automatically figuring out who's my neighbors, who's my peers, who's my far neighbors, and starts figuring out all that routing. So you can just browse, basically, your network and just cruise through it. You don't have to worry about static IPs and changing all this stuff. Now, if you want to get advanced into it, you can do that. Self-healing, what do I mean by that? I mean, you look at this image here on the picture. You see the blue and dots and the different ones. There's more than one connection connecting everything. So if the red dot wants to get to one of the light blue dots, it can take multiple paths to get there. So if one path goes down, whether it's a power failure or whatever, there's always another route to get there. So in a true mesh, even if you lose a node, you can still get there. Now, you might not have as great a connection through those other nodes, or you might not have as direct of a route, so it might cost a little bit more in speed or data, but you can still get there and you can still communicate, which is what we're ultimately trying to do, is to communicate. So it allows for a redundant communications because of that healing properties. Uses off-the-shelf equipment. I'll show some of the equipment here in a little bit, but the equipment is readily available, and most of it you can buy for $50, $60 or less. I mean, it's very inexpensive compared to, I mean, even the portable radios we typically buy. And then high-speed data transfer, I touched on this already. You know, we get that, the 802.11n protocol, you know, we can get up to that 144 megabytes a second. You know, you can put a lot of data on that. Now, it's something to be mindful. You don't want to abuse all that data, but you can put a lot of things on it and serve a lot of services on your network. And then uses non-shared channels. So we have, as hams, privileges on 900 meg, 2.4, and 5.8 gig. Now, 3.4, as you see, I put some asterisks on there. Sorry about that. Jumped ahead. You'll see I put the asterisks on there. The FCC just ruled, and we've been fighting this for about a year and a half, that the 3.4 gig, we were secondary users on that to the federal government, just ruled that we have to start to vacate the 3.4 gig band. Now, part of the band, and we'll jump to that in a second here. This is the order by the FCC. Part of the band has to be vacated by November 9th. The other half of the band, which we still have channels in, has no date set yet that we need to vacate. Speculation said something around 2022 that we would have to vacate it. So I would avoid at this time purchasing anything for the 3.4 gig band, but we will see what happens as it appears there are still some decisions to be made as far as this. But at this point, it looks like we have, for the most part, lost this band. So sad news there, but that's sometimes how it goes. Other than satellite and some AREDN use, there isn't a lot of amateur use in it that I've seen. I could be wrong. In other parts of the country, maybe there's more. But I think that's part of the reason it was easily taken, was maybe we weren't using it enough. But it's also finding equipment that's in it. So network planning. So once you get into it, a lot of people ask me, well, what should I buy? Well, that's not a simple question to answer. That really depends on what I say, the 4 W's. Where will it be used? What will it be used for? Who will be using it? And when will they be using it? So where will it be used? Is it something that you're right now setting up a lot of indoor stuff, or is it going to be up on a tower? Is it going to be at your house on, just on your tripod on top of your roof or something like that? Because that all depends on what you're trying to cover. So, are you going to put it up on a 200-300 foot tower in the center of town? Then maybe you want some sector antennas, things like that, sector dishes, antennas with radios, things like that, to get really good coverage everywhere in town. Or are you just trying to, right now, kind of play with it, tinker with it, and maybe connect to your buddy across town? That's going to make a difference. What will it be used for? Is there potential for bandwidth issues? Are you going to be pushing a lot of video on it? Are you going to be setting up a PBX server? We got a couple here on our network. Are you going to be connecting to a bunch of different mesh islands? So let's say you have a few different hams in your club that are in different towns, and you don't have RF between all of them yet. Maybe you're going to want to get a device that allows you to easily run VPNs until you are able to link to everybody via RF. Who will be using it? Is it going to be all hams? Are you going to start putting this in front of your served agencies right away? Because you're going to have to make sure that things are simple. When we've done some of our exercises and we sat down people in front of a video chat or something like that, while the computer and things were familiar to them, and it wasn't this weird radio or whatever, that, TNCs and things like that someone that's not a ham isn't know what they're looking at. We had to still do some just-in-time training during that incident or that exercise to say, hey, this is still how this device or this software works. So they could use it while we could work on other things on the mesh and things like that to make sure that things were flowing for that agency. When will they be using it? Is this something that your club or group is going to maintain permanently and keep on 24/7? Or is it something that you're just setting up for an event? We've had events where we go out and set up 20, 30 nodes just for that event for a few days and then tear it all down in the end. But we're set up, nodes that cover 25 square miles to get data, video conferencing files, etc., across an entire city, and then boom, we're done. Now, it's great to have that permanent infrastructure. So those are all things, if a portable setup is what you're building, you're going to buy different equipment based on that, and also plan it differently as far as channels and bands and things like that. So mesh topography, when we talk about this, is I kind of think about it in three different tiers. You have a backbone, which is let's say Sauk County, my county, we have our mesh network. And then Dane County builds their mesh network, and we're working on it down there. We're not going to have 5 different nodes. I mean, it would be cool, but 5 different nodes between Dane County and Sauk County probably talking to each other. We're going to have a high gain dish system that's connected between those 2 points. So to connect the 2 county systems together. So it's a high level, choose a couple towers, things like that have high bandwidth dishes connected to each other. So you think of Sauk County as a hub, and then Dane County as a hub. And then we just got 1, maybe eventually 2 spindles that are connecting each other. And then in Sauk County, that hub, it's going to the different cities. So that backbone is connected to a node or 2 in Baraboo, and a node or 2 in the Dells, and a node or 2 in Reedsburg. But then inside of that town, then your mesh is really taking over, where you might have 1 or 2 nodes or 1 or 2 of your second layer, as you see in this image, of your relay nodes that's providing that saturated coverage to your town. And then your deployed nodes, think of that as your home, your node that's at your house, maybe at a fire station, an EOC, things like that. They're connecting into these relay nodes. So you really got 3 levels. And then maybe a deployed node, maybe that is a portable node. You set up for a special event in a downtown area or at a park or along a marathon or something like that. A deployed node, it might be on a 10-foot tripod shooting to the water tower in town that's carrying your relay node. And then your deployed node is able to, you can have cameras hooked up to it right there, or maybe it's just relaying again to a camera setup that is, only on can't see that water tower or something like that. So you can really daisy chain these out, but then they can all mesh into each other. So really at the town or the city level, that's where you're seeing that true mesh. And then as those high backbone level, it might look more like an actual point-to-point or a hub and spoke system. It really depends on your area and what you're able to accomplish. But one big thing that we've seen when we've designed these is people want to put up like an Omni antenna and just have everybody connect to that. Well, one thing you have is channel collisions. Let's say you have 15 nodes connected to one omnidirectional node in the middle. So node B. Node C and A can't see each other. So they don't know the other one is trying to talk at the same time. They both sit there and talk, and you start losing data. From exercises and different things that we've done, we've been able to see this play out. One of the first exercises we did is I figured out we had 22 nodes all connected to the same exact node in the middle on an omnidirectional antenna at the same time. So one single RF channel, 22 nodes. And at first, it wasn't too bad. But as other nodes started trying to send data, as other people started getting on video chats and things like that, then we saw things were just all over the board. So you could watch the link qualities go up and down. You could see the data throughputs go up and down. And what we discovered is that we were having all these data collisions that you see, and it was destroying our throughput speeds because we were losing so much data. So it's really wise, if you're going to put up a node on a water tower or something like that to serve your town, maybe not look at an omnidirectional antenna, but maybe looking at splitting it up. So you got what's called sector antennas. They're slightly directional, but you could split it up on 2 or 3 different channels, and then you don't have those collisions on the same channel. So we'll see the ham channels here. So we got all these channels here. The 5.8 gig, 3.4, 2.4. So 2.4, we only have technically 2 channels, but if you're going to use it at 10 or 20 meg, you really only have 1 channel. 2.4, I've seen some really impressive, I've been really impressed with 2.4 on the ham band. Once you get into the shared Wi-Fi band, good luck. The noise flow level is through the roof. However, on that ham band, we've done some links here in Baraboo, non-line of sight, couple miles through trees, buildings, things like that, that I was surprised we even had any link. As I said, the 3.4 band, we've basically lost the lower half of that right now. We're going to lose the rest of it here, probably by the end of 2022. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. The other thing is there isn't a lot of equipment available on it. But 5.8 is where you're going to spend a lot of your time. So you see we got quite a few channels there. That gives you a lot to work with as you're splitting things up. So as you're planning that, like I said, there's low cost options. As you look here, most of your stuff under $100, a lot of it under $75 or $50. Some of the things you'll see, the Rocket here plus antenna. Typically the antenna is going to be, you can put a dish antenna on that. That's just the radio is the Rocket. Then the antenna, it can be a sector antenna, which is your kind of looks like a cellular antenna. You can put a Yagi on it. Well, the 900 meg one, you can put a Yagi on it. Dish, or an Omni. So you have a lot of different options. A lot of these other ones, these are all integrated. So radio and antenna are all in one device. So on the screen here, you see this little dish thing on here on the right side. That's a nano beam. So that's radio and a dish all in one piece. They're about $60, $65. Down here on the bottom, this is a nano station. It's a small sector antenna. It doesn't have a lot of gain, but they're about anywhere from $70 to $80, depending on which one you buy. There is a $60 smaller one as well, but they work great for starting. And then this HAP, this HAP's about $45, $50, and they're great. You can plug them into your home network. You can use them to put internet onto your network, run a VPN to other networks, and you can even power another node through it because it's got PoE pass-through. So you lot of options there with that. So these are the sector antennas I was talking about. They got the rockets on the back. This is one of our installations here in Baraboo, and so this is a way of splitting it up. So we have 1.24 up here. This is a 2.4 antenna, and then these other two are 5.8 gig. And they've served us for several parades, other special events, and even some minor incidences downtown as well, being able to serve cameras and some other things. This is an example of that omnidirectional antenna I was talking about. So this has got the rocket mounted below it, so that's the radio, and then your Omni. And then you might have a camera, so you can see there's that PTZ camera here down in the lower right-hand corner. And then the dish. That can be connecting to another node. So you might use two dishes to connect two nodes together, so you have its own dedicated link. So you got really good bandwidth between the two nodes, but then you don't have to rely on the nodes to connect each other on their own channel, and you can keep those clean and free for the actual stations to hook to. with these equipment, here's some of the different brands that AREDN is now supporting versus just the blue router. And we're going from, 10, 20 milliwatts to 200 to 600 milliwatts. I mean, that's huge, especially when you're talking microwave and really high gain. I mean, you can get a 34 dB gain dish, and to put that on a half-watt transmitter, you're putting out some pretty good actual radiated power. So, plus robustness of what kind of temperatures we can run at. We live in Wisconsin. Those Blue Linksys routers, they're not designed to be running in 20 below weather, but these devices are. And depending on how your setup is, you might be able to get a point-to-point link 20, 30, 40 miles with the right setup between the right points, of course. It is still line of sight, so it's not like, you're definitely not doing that if you got a tree in the way. But if you have a couple nice towers that can link two areas, distant areas together, it'll work great. The other big thing when you're looking at equipment is you'll see a difference between single polarity antennas and multi-polarity or dual polarity antennas. You will see a difference between these two, especially when you start putting things out there, especially if you have mixed polarities in your network. The multiple polarity antennas not only will have better throughput, but they'll also help with multipath issues, especially if you have, you can see that off of a water tower, things like that, and interference issues from other devices out there on, adjacent channels, things like that. So you will see a difference. So I would strongly suggest, as much as possible, using the dual polarity equipment that's out there. When you look at the equipment, if you go to the AREDN website and go to their supported equipment matrix, on there it will show you what equipment is single polarity and which equipment is dual polarity. Now, most of our permanent network, actually all of our permanent network, is dual polarity. However, when we do deploy, we do have some equipment that is single polarity. I have seen issues when we do deploy it. The single polarity stuff does not perform as well as the dual polarity stuff. So it is true. Sometimes, as hams, we do work with what we got and we make it work. So, not saying it's not going to work, but you are going to be better off in the long run trying to invest in as much dual polarity stuff as you can when you're looking at your equipment. Some of the networks. So here in Wisconsin, we're just kind of getting started with this. California has been one of the big driving forces behind AREDN. Most of the developers are from that area, and they've also been able to secure some grants for it. So they have a pretty incredible network out there, as you can see. And if you look at this map, you also see some gray lines coming off that. They have links going all the way up the coast, all the way up into the San Francisco area. And it is pretty cool to see. Someday, maybe, it'll start to look like this. We got quite a few orange and purple dots around the Wisconsin area already, but it's coming. But this is just an example. Now, they've been able to use it. These are some Orange County, California. That is a metropolitan county. They've been able to use it and bring it into these EOCs and these mobile command posts during these big marathons and things, bringing video and live data right into the command post instantly. The Ares Races team was actually able to partner with their served agencies and still provide critical information back to law enforcement and fire and EMS agencies for these marathons. So here in my county, this is our current actual deployed coverage. Now, it doesn't look like much, but this is only off of a couple nodes. We do have stuff purchased that's going to be going up into the Lake Delton, Wisconsin Dells area. However, working out some fine details as far as with the actual village is before that gets up. That long story. Not going into that. But even with this coverage, some of the stuff we've been able to do. Now, this is a completely portable setup, and we're trying to mimic this on a permanent setup. But with that, to get that coverage we have done, going in, setting up a portable setup like this, and just showing it off. And a lot of times when I said, hey, we can set up these cameras, we can do these different things, the response was, well, I don't know where you're going to be able to put them. I don't know this. I don't know that. I went in, and a lot of it was kind of taking the initiative to say, hey, don't worry about that. I'll figure it out. Because they started, well, how are you going to get it back here? I don't know if I'd be able to figure that out. They'd tell me this, these law enforcement or the fire officers would say that. And I said, don't worry about that. We got that. I'll show you once we get it figured out. And it would come back to the command post, and they'd be going, whoa, how in the world did that happen? Because in this bottom left picture, you see that dish. You can't see the event area from there. They're thinking it's this voodoo magic. But we made it happen, and guess what? It opened all these doors to, hey, what do you guys want to? You guys want to help us out with this? Would this be possible? And this thing, and the next, and so on and so forth, and to all the possibilities we can do with this, and then starting to build out that permanent network. Hey, yeah, we'd love to get this on top of the water tower. You guys, it'd make all the setup so much easier, because we spent a couple hours setting all this up, getting the tower from WEM and setting up all these portable dishes and attaching the poles and all that stuff, because we were able to put out all these cameras on the poles for this big event. But in the end, it was very beneficial. So another exercise we did, this was SimCom 2019. Now this year, sadly, we had to cancel SimCom, but this was the city of Waukesha, so big urban area. However, we were connecting some very, very geographically separate areas. So this is about a 25 square mile square you're looking at right now. I think the longest actual link, was about 7 miles. Possibly. I believe it was this bottom purple one here. But command post up here in the top, and then we had all these different branches at each point down here that we were trying to get data, so we were able to get video and video conferencing and things like that there, and on a completely portable setup. So a lot of these were battery powered. We might have had a couple generators. This one here, over here on the left-hand corner where you see the yellow line, this was a relay node. So the actual area that needed to be served was down here, but there's a huge ridge running up and down this area here that there was never going to be line of sight. So we found this park here, and I'll show you. We'll jump to this one. You see Matt Annan here. He's a very big help. We set up this tripod, and you can see these sectors here, and then this little dish right here. And so this shot back to the command post, and then this served a couple of the other branches, and then this other node here, it just shot right down into that ball field where that other branch was that we needed to get this data to. And so this just ran off of a battery for a couple days, and it worked great, and it made us happen. Plus, we were able to put our UHF repeater up there we use for our coordination, and served made it really easy to coordinate our mesh networking setup. So, and then here at one of the command posts you see, we just set up a node on a little tripod right here, shot it up to here, and then ran Cat5 right into the command post and plugged it right into the computer, and we're able to get them on the video conferencing and all that stuff. And yeah, it can be that simple. So you can see inside of that command post, here I was able to put it in front of a sheriff's deputy, and he was able to make some conferencing, some chat, things like that, back to the command post, let them know, hey, this is what we got going on. This is the status updates, things like that. Little quick injection here. I got over here on the left. This is actually northern Minnesota up on the Canadian border. Dog sled race. So I actually powered this one off a generator because it was running for many, many, many hours in the cold. So batteries don't like that as much. And just pumping some video right back to a checkpoint so we could get a heads up of teams coming in with a PTZ camera on nodes. So very, very basic network. There was only 3 links in that setup versus SimCom where we had 22, 23 links. So back to SimCom, this was what we were looking at in the command post. So on the left screen, we had set up video conferencing. So you got the video here, and then on the computer monitor, you actually have chat and things like that right into the command post from that branch. And then on the right, we have cameras that are out watching some of the different operations going on in those actual areas. So that gives your command staff situational awareness of what's actually going on out there. And then on the right, you'll see we got the node coming into a portable box that I built. And that's just simply bringing the data right into the setup. And got a switch in there that provides the data to the computers. Now, this is a little more extensive setup. It doesn't have to be. It could be as simple as a laptop. It just depends on the needs of that agency, the incident, and, what's the length of the time. Are you going to get a little more complicated? Maybe set up a desktop computer. That's all situationally dependent. So you look at, now this is the published AREDN map off of AREDNmesh.org. Now, not every node's on here. A lot of people will say, well, there aren't any nodes on here from my area. Well, that doesn't mean they don't exist, because this is a voluntarily published. So when you put up your node, you can actually say, yes, put me on the map. Otherwise, there might be a lot of stuff on here on the map. But as you can see, it's growing. When I first started playing with this, there was only 1 in Wisconsin on that map, and there was only 2 in Minnesota on that map. Now look at it. We got a lot. So it's growing and it's coming. So it's kind of cool to tool around here and see. So how do you get some of this equipment? Well, a lot of it's out of our pockets. We're hams. We enjoy playing with it. That's how a lot of it goes. However, for the permanent infrastructure, things like that, there are a lot of places out there that you can get grants from. Walmart, for instance. Walmart loves giving the $250 away. Now, this year, I'm not sure how that's going to go. Obviously, we have coronavirus. However, Walmart's making a lot of money. So I know we've written to Walmart a couple times, been able to get some money from them. Alliant Energy, Quick Trip, American Family. A lot of these different places have grant programs that you can write into. Your emergency management, if you get a really good relationship with them, they might be aware of some different ones that you might not be as well, and maybe help write those. So if you got someone in your group, Aries, Racies, or even your club, that's good at getting things down on paper, depending on who you're writing it for, sometimes it's you got to write up a case study or why we're trying to do this, what problem we're trying to solve, things like that. Other times we're just trying to get this piece of equipment and this is what it does. So every grant's a little different, but if you got someone in your group that's really good at putting things down on paper and making it make sense to somebody that's not technical, that's, this is what the greater good is going to come from giving some money to this, that is available. So there are areas that have used grants to pay for a good portion of their mesh network. So don't count it out. Now we figured out our network. We got it all set up. We've answered the 4 W's. Where's it going to be used? What will it be used for? Who will be using it? When will they be using it? What about what will it be used for? So we showed a few of those things when we were talking about it. The exercises, SimCom, and our dog sled race, things like that. But when I'm talking to people about it, they're thinking about it as this network, as this, and I think a lot of people look at networks, whether it's your home network or your business network, as this very weird thing that I plug into my computer, I turn on my Wi-Fi, I connect my phone to my Wi-Fi, and somehow it gets from point A to point B. And we start talking about mesh networking, especially when you talk to an emergency manager or to a fire chief or a police chief or whoever you're talking to it about, they're always like, but how do you do that? I mean, it's weird. I found that telling them we're making a highway. We got a highway out here. That is what we're putting in front of them. We can put on it whatever we want. It's up to us to populate the highway, right? I mean, anything nowadays can be put on a network. Everything has a Cat5 jack or Wi-Fi, right? Even our radios nowadays, we can hook up to a network, right? So that I found is a very simple way to put it in first responder language, and then it clicks. And what do we have? We have a highway. Let's populate it. Let's put our VoIP phones on it. You know, we got Raspberry Pis that we can run PBX servers on, get $25 phones or old used phones, Cisco phones or whatever you want to use, and we got a phone system. You can get a Google Voice number and port it right into your PBX server, and then you got an incoming phone number. You can drop that into a command post or just play with it yourself, and here, we got your phones. Another great software you can use on the mesh is the WINLINK. You can set up a WINLINK Telnet. Now, typically we use WINLINK all with radio, where you're setting things either HF or even on VHF, doing the email messaging, things like that. However, you could set up a WINLINK Telnet gateway on your mesh for both incoming and outgoing. So you could have it hooked up to a radio somewhere and send your messages locally through the mesh, and then have it go out over the RF network if you don't have that internet connection or something like that to get those messages out. And then also accept them on the RF side and then come into the Telnet gateway on your mesh. So both ways. Cameras are another very common, and it's probably going to be your most common thing that you're going to put on your mesh network. For events and things like that, it gives great situational awareness to those that are typically sitting in a command post or something like that, and otherwise are usually just listening to a radio or something like that. They can see what's actually going on in the ground. The other thing is it's nice for, maybe weather spotting. Stick a camera up on top of a tower somewhere and you kind of just see it, and you can kind of see what it's doing outside, whether what the clouds look like, things like that. Fun stuff. Cameras can be cheap. $30, $40, or you can get a nicer, PTZ camera, things like that. So a lot of different options there. Analog and digital links. So right now we do have some GMRS linking that we're using on mesh network, and just using it, using all-star boxes and using the mesh to link it all together. You could also access a remote radio or repeater via it. They're with like All-Star and some of the other ones that are out there. You can set it up all on no internet required, but a private network, and then you could have a computer or a phone set up as a soft phone or a soft phone software that allows you to transmit and talk on that repeater or radio remotely just across the mesh network. So you could have an operator with no radios in front of him, and he's operating a radio, up at a remote site, being able to get that voice communication back to a location maybe it's not feasible to set up a proper voice network at. It's, a lot of cool stuff you can do with VoIP or radio over IP things. All-Star Link, this is just a picture quick of I got a small netbook that I have the soft phone software set up with a Bluetooth headset. Allows me to log into a couple different remote radios and a repeater, and I could be in a hospital, I could be anywhere, and access those radios and repeaters and talk through them without having to set up an antenna and make sure I can actually get out to it RF-wise, just as long as I'm on the mesh network. Team Talk, it's just one of the many different chat softwares out there. They do video chat. You can do just regular typing chat, text chat, and even file sharing and desktop sharing. So this is something that we use during SimCom. We kind of played with it. getting it out to some of those agency members and allowing them to have a video chat or a phone chat just through a laptop or a phone. You can even put it onto a smartphone between the command post and the different operational areas. Some of the cool things, people put the ADS-B receivers on there. You can log in and see it. Just a fun thing to play with. We're hams. Not everything has to have an MCOM purpose, but there is potential purpose for this too. We've done search and rescue exercises with aircraft, and one of the things we did in this area is they were like, man, it'd be nice to be able to see exactly where they are on a map. And I was like, well, I can do that. We already got it set up. Gave them a login, and they were like, oh, well, that was easy. So you never know how things can come in handy during an MCOM exercise or even incident. We talked a little bit about linking radios. A lot of scanners, even nowadays, you can hook up to the internet, hook up to a network, and access them remotely. So we have one set up on ours that you can control it. You can listen to the audio, all kinds of different things. The possibilities, they're just, they really are. The sky's the limit. They're endless. So, file servers, you can do cloud sharing. There's a lot of free software out there. You can just run it right off of a Raspberry Pi. You could set up a full-blown server if you wanted to. Just about anything. I mean, talked about video conferencing, phone linking, WINLINK, internet, web servers. It's anything. It's just a highway. We just got to populate it. So, that's really the gist of it, just for the overview. I know it was a lot to digest, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions, but feel free to let us know what those questions are. So a few useful links here in Wisconsin. We got the Wisconsin Mesh Facebook group, and then as far as AREDN itself, they have their ardenmesh.org website, and then there's also the AREDN Facebook group. I'm going to jump over to the AREDN website here real quick. This is the website when you get there. A lot of really good information on here. I'd highly recommend checking it out. If you go to the software tab here, that's where you'll find all the firmware as well as the supported hardware, the supported platform matrix, and then this docs area. If you click docs in the latest, this will take you to the how-to or the documentation section. It is extremely well put together. It's got a lot of really good information. All on the left here, you got all kinds of different things, how-to guides, how to install, downloading. Really good information. I'd highly encourage you to check it out and use it for anything. And then they also have a forum back on the regular website. Lots of great people on there willing to help out, answer questions, and things like that. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us for this quick overview, and hope to answer any questions you guys have. So, thank you.